Your doctor wrote 2 words on a notepad: high blood pressure. Then they quickly scribbled a prescription for amlodipine, shook your hand, and just like that, the appointment was over. You walked out of the clinic with a pill, but absolutely no explanation of what it actually does inside your body, and no real conversation about what created the problem in the first place. The instructions were simple: take this once a day, and we will see you back here in 3 months. Here is what most men never find out until much later in life. Amlodipine does not actually fix anything. It simply manages it. There is a very specific reason why men who understand that critical distinction get far better long-term health outcomes than men who do not, and that is exactly what today is about. Having worked with men over 45 for most of my career, I can tell you that the ones who truly get their blood pressure under control, the ones whose arteries are genuinely healthier at 60 than they were at 55, all share one specific trait: they understand exactly what is happening inside their vascular system. They do not just know which pill to take, they know why it works and what makes it work better or worse over time. If you want to dive deeper into this, I have put together a comprehensive written guide in the description below covering natural approaches, dietary protocols, and specific mineral adjustments that support arterial health alongside your medical treatment. Now, let us look at what is actually happening inside your arteries. Most men naturally think of high blood pressure as a heart problem. You see the numbers on the monitor, you immediately associate them with stress on your heart, and that is completely fair because your heart is under significantly more strain when your pressure is elevated. However, the real story starts somewhere else entirely. It starts directly in the walls of your blood vessels. Your arteries are not rigid, inanimate pipes. They are made of living tissue surrounded by smooth muscle that contracts and relaxes with every single heartbeat. When you are younger and those muscles are healthy, they flex naturally, absorbing the pressure and releasing it smoothly. But here is what happens over time. In millions of men in their 40s and 50s, the smooth muscles surrounding those vessels start to tighten chronically. They stop fully relaxing between heartbeats, maintaining a state of low-level contraction like a fist that never completely opens up. This creates a narrower tube for the exact same amount of blood trying to force its way through, and as a direct result, your blood pressure goes up. To understand how to reverse this, you have to understand the precise biological mechanism behind that tightening, and this is where amlodipine enters the story to alter your vascular chemistry. For those smooth muscles to contract and squeeze around your arteries, calcium ions must enter the muscle cells. This is literal molecular chemistry, happening thousands of times per second inside your vascular tissue. Calcium ions flow in through specialized proteins embedded in the cell wall, which scientists call L-type voltage-gated calcium channels. Think of them as tiny, tightly regulated doors set into the wall of each muscle cell. When those doors open, calcium rushes in, binds to proteins inside, and the contraction signal fires, causing the muscle to squeeze. Amlodipine does one thing, and it does it extremely well. It binds to those channels and physically sits inside them, effectively blocking the entryways. Because calcium cannot get through in the same quantity, the smooth muscle around your artery cannot receive its full contraction signal. The muscle relaxes, the vessel widens, blood flows more freely, and your blood pressure drops. What makes amlodipine particularly useful for men is how selectively it targets these peripheral vessels. It does not slow down your heartbeat the way beta blockers do, and it does not directly impact your kidneys. It focuses almost entirely on the mechanism of contraction in the smooth muscle of your arterial walls, which is why it maintains a relatively clean side effect profile for most individuals. However, here is the critical piece of information that no one told you at the clinic. The calcium channel is blocked, and the vessel is being held open mechanically, but the root cause driving that smooth muscle to squeeze is still present. The chronic tension and the vascular stiffness that built up over years of high sodium intake, low physical activity, accumulated stress, and gradual arterial aging have not disappeared. The medication is keeping the gauge in the safe zone, but the underlying engine is still running exactly the same way it was before. That gap between simply managing a number and actually addressing what created it is the exact trap that eventually catches most men. Let me give you a real example of a patient named David, a 58-year-old man with a blood pressure reading of 162/94. He was slightly overweight, worked a high-stress job, and relied heavily on convenience foods, a pattern I observe every single week. He started taking amlodipine, and his numbers came down beautifully within 2 weeks. David assumed he was completely fixed, so he stopped reading food labels, went right back to his old routine, and kept taking his pill every morning. Fast forward 18 months, and he was right back in my office because his numbers were creeping up again, and his doctor was talking about increasing his dose. David was incredibly frustrated and confused because he had done everything right by never missing a single pill, but he was not given the full biological picture. The calcium channels were successfully blocked, yes, but the surrounding environment had not changed. The sodium overload driving fluid retention, the arterial inflammation from a poor diet, and the sustained vascular tension were all still active, forcing the medication to compensate for more and more pressure. Before we look at how David turned his health around, we need to address the common side effects of amlodipine with real explanations rather than dismissals. Ankle swelling is the most frequent issue, appearing in about 5 to 10% of men on this medication. This almost always creates immediate worry, as men assume their kidneys are failing or their heart is under extreme strain. In reality, when amlodipine relaxes the walls of your arteries, it alters the pressure gradient and allows more blood to enter the tiny capillaries at the lower ends of your legs. Some of that fluid naturally seeps out into the surrounding soft tissue, creating the visible swelling. Your kidneys and heart are not in danger. This is a localized peripheral vascular effect. Elevating your legs for 30 to 40 minutes in the evening or engaging in moderate walking during the day can improve circulation enough to significantly reduce this effect. Flushing, warmth in the face, and a feeling that your skin is running hot can also happen during the first few weeks of starting amlodipine. Your arteries are wider than they have been in a long time, meaning blood is reaching the capillaries in your face and neck with much more ease as your body recalibrates to this wider arterial diameter as its new baseline. For the vast majority of men, this effect fades entirely without any need to adjust the dosage. Furthermore, if you have ever taken an ACE inhibitor like ramipril, you are probably familiar with that persistent, irritating dry cough that follows you everywhere. Amlodipine operates through an entirely different pathway and does not cause this side effect, which is why many men are switched to it when the cough from other medications becomes intolerable. However, there is one direct warning you must take seriously: grapefruit juice. There is a specific enzyme in your gut wall and liver called CYP3A4 that breaks down amlodipine at a controlled rate to keep its concentration within the safe therapeutic range. Grapefruit juice contains active compounds that partially suppress this enzyme, meaning far more of the medication enters your bloodstream than intended, potentially pushing concentrations beyond safe limits. While an occasional glass is fine, if you drink it every morning, you should switch to another option and inform your doctor. Now let us focus on the part that actually changes your long-term health outcomes, the exact piece of the puzzle David was missing. There is a category of lifestyle interventions that are completely natural and require no prescription, yet clinical research has repeatedly shown they can lower systolic blood pressure by 8 to 14 points when followed consistently. For context, a standard starting dose of amlodipine typically lowers systolic pressure by 10 to 15 points. Think about that. The right dietary approach comes within identical range of a starting dose of prescription medication. It is the exact same therapeutic territory, just achieved through a different biological mechanism. When you combine them, the effects stack. While amlodipine physically blocks the calcium channel, the right diet changes the actual chemical environment surrounding that channel, reducing the internal forces driving the muscle to contract while improving the elasticity of the arterial wall itself. Because these are different mechanisms moving in the same direction, you are opening two fronts against hypertension simultaneously. The most rigorously studied dietary approach for this is called the DASH protocol, Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. This is not a social media trend. It has been studied for decades by major cardiovascular institutions and is built around three foundational levers: sodium reduction, potassium optimization, and magnesium support. Sodium is the most powerful single variable in this protocol, yet most men I see are consuming between 3,000 and 5,000 milligrams of it daily with zero awareness. The target for meaningful blood pressure management is actually under 1,500 milligrams. The biggest mistake men make is attacking the salt shaker, but that is not where most sodium hides. The real culprits are processed foods, canned products, commercial breads, deli meats, and restaurant meals. The salt you consciously add to your plate is only a tiny fraction of your actual consumption. Making one simple adjustment, cooking at home 3 to 4 nights per week instead of ordering takeaway, gives you complete control, as a single restaurant pasta dish can contain close to your entire daily allowance. This shift alone can produce visible movement in your blood pressure readings within 2 to 3 weeks. The second lever is potassium, which operates in direct competition with sodium. Higher potassium intake signals your kidneys to excrete more sodium, reducing fluid volume and lowering the pressure on your vessel walls. While bananas get all the attention, foods like avocados, sweet potatoes, spinach, white beans, and lentils are actually far superior sources. Your goal should be including 2 potassium-rich foods at most meals to act as a natural counterweight. The third lever is magnesium, and this is the one that surprises men most consistently. Magnesium is directly involved in the relaxation of smooth muscle tissue, including the muscles surrounding your arteries. While its biological pathway is completely different from amlodipine, the directional outcome is exactly the same. Your vessel walls experience less tension, becoming far more capable of relaxing and widening in response to your blood flow. Research suggests that 200 to 400 milligrams of supplemental magnesium daily can reduce blood pressure by 2 to 4 points in people with low levels. Studies consistently show that a massive proportion of men in their 40s and 50s are operating below optimal levels without knowing it, simply because a magnesium deficiency does not announce itself with clear symptoms. Excellent food sources include dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, and dark chocolate with 70% cacao or higher. If you are adding a supplement to your routine, magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate tends to absorb much better than standard magnesium oxide. When you combine sodium reduction, potassium optimization, and magnesium support with your prescribed amlodipine, you are no longer just blocking a channel. You are reducing the biological pressure that drives those vessel walls to want to squeeze in the first place. Quick question for those watching. When your doctor prescribed your medication, did they spend any time discussing a specific dietary protocol with you? Write yes or no in the comments below. Understanding what to expect on a week-by-week timeline removes the anxiety that leads many men to stop their medication too early, which is a choice that can be genuinely dangerous. During days 1 through 3, amlodipine is slowly building toward its therapeutic level in your system, meaning you might see a small shift in your numbers or absolutely none at all. This is completely normal, so you must not adjust your dose or add a second pill out of frustration. By days 4 through 7, blood levels approach a steady state, and meaningful downward movement in your pressure readings should begin. If localized ankle swelling occurs, it typically shows up during this window and will ease within 2 to 3 weeks if you keep your legs elevated in the evening. By weeks 3 and 4, men who combine their medication with the DASH protocol notice something incredible. Their numbers are not just lower, but the sharp morning spikes and daily fluctuations begin to completely flatten out into a consistent range. This is exactly how David turned his health around. 4 months after his frustrating checkup, he returned to the clinic after cutting out processed foods, adding magnesium glycinate, and lowering his sodium. His blood pressure was lower than it had been when he first started medication 2 years prior, allowing his doctor to safely reduce his amlodipine dose under strict medical supervision. Never stop or reduce your medication without your physician's guidance, because doing so can cause a dangerous rebound spike in pressure. The pill is the floor, but your daily choices determine the ceiling. And if you want the full written dietary targets and mineral framework to optimize your cardiovascular health, the complete guide is linked in the description below.